Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Ladies and gentlemen, it is official. The NBA season is here. We had two regular season games to kick off things last night on TNT. So not only were we lucky enough to watch some good basketball, but we got our favorite basketball program to come with it too, as Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, Shaq, and Ernie Johnson were back with us, which is always entertaining. Sap, fresh off of, by the way, all getting massive contract extensions, which is pretty nice for them.
Yeah, deservedly so. It's the best show on TV, talking sports. It feels like a radio show. We've talked about that. The dynamic with Shaq and Barkley is great. Then you've got Kenny Smith, who's like the deep thinker, and Ernie Johnson's the best point guard in the NBA, right? Because he just sits there and makes sure that all three of those guys are at their best, and he makes them all shine. So you put that in with a couple entertaining games. Heck, the Celtics 76ers game was more entertaining than the last three Thursday night football games on Prime Video, for sure. Yeah, it was
and
good.
Barkley made sure to say that, by the way.
Oh,
he
yeah,
did
exactly.
call out the football games.
Great minds think alike, right? Well, I know we're going to talk about it later. Hopefully, Barkley isn't going to be working for Prime in 4 or 5 years if they get their mitts in on the NBA, but that's something we'll talk about a little bit later because they're interested in jumping in as a TV partner with the NBA at some point.
Yeah, everybody wants a little piece of the NBA right now, and we had 4 teams in action last night. My Celtics, your Lakers, though they weren't playing each other. The Celtics squared off against the 76ers in what it should have been a preview of two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, from what most people think, Sap. And ultimately, it was the Celtics coming out on top 126-117. And really for the Celtics, it was a continuation of what they were doing towards the end of last year, in that they played really good team basketball, and Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown were both able to do whatever they wanted offensively.
Yeah, a little bit different feel. It was more of offensive execution, which I thought was great. Not so much on the defensive end. Maybe they're going to play a little bit differently this year with a new coach and Joe Mazzulla replacing Ime Udoka. And Ime Udoka was great at really selling a defensive presence for the Celtics. Of course, they don't have Robert Williams, so that's going to change their defense without question. I think he's their best defensive player. Heck, he may be the best defensive player in the league, but we're not going to see him till at least midseason. But as far as last night, Tatum and Brown looked outstanding. They combined for 70 points. Jet, they were 21 of 25 inside the arc. That's 84% on twos. That's phenomenal. 84% is great from the free throw line, let alone on two-point shooting. I thought Tatum was attacking the basket, which we all like to see, getting to the free throw line. Jaylen Brown, his mid-range game was there. It also looked to me like Jaylen Brown has worked on his left hand a little bit in the offseason. That's going to expand his repertoire. And holy crap, Jaylen Brown spent a lot of time in the weight room. He looked like freaking Khalil Mack out there last night. I mean, he looks like he could go play in the NFL at any moment as a outside linebacker, edge rusher. I mean, it looks like he's primed for a massive season. Love to see Malcolm Brogdon. I really like the player. He's so smooth and efficient. He's kind of the anti-Marcus Smart. And I know I'm not going to push back against your guy right away. But, we know that Marcus Smart's constantly on the ground, on the floor, moaning and groaning, trying to draw
He
fouls.
was last night, yep.
All the time. He and Joel Embiid, when they play the 76ers, everyone should just get off the court and let Embiid and Marcus Smart go at it in like a wrestling match. I think, WWE would pick that up quickly. But Brogdon is so efficient and smooth, right? He's got that left hand that he comes from the right side to the left side crossover with the left. He's a guy who in his career has had seasons where he's been a 50, 40, 90 guy. He's going to fit in perfectly. Defensively, I think, they had some questions, but that's something that they can do when they need to during the season. You don't need to come out in game one and be in a lockdown mode. They'll have that in their back pocket, especially when Rob Williams returns. They also played with much more pace and force. We talked about that a lot last year, Jet, that offensively they would get stagnant at times. Last night, they were pushing the ball even after a made basket by the 76ers, and they were getting into their sets crisply and with authority. And I think that really showed with Marcus Smart leading the way in terms of setting up some of the play, but also we saw Tatum and Brown finishing off at a very, very high level. They played with really good pace. As you can see, they had 24 fast break points. Philadelphia had 2. That's a massive difference. So obviously, offensively, they were clicking on all cylinders last night, led by Tatum and Brown.
Yeah, absolutely. The fast break points were arguably the story of the game, in that they were playing, like you said, Sap, with a lot of pace, and that was really great to see. I was so happy to see Brogdon out there because you could just tell immediately he was that piece that was missing in the finals when Brown and Tatum weren't able to get things going. They had no one else to go to in the finals. Brogdon it presents that scoring option off the bench, and he's just a smart basketball player, right? He's not going to make a lot of mistakes. He's going to play solid defense. He can score from all three levels, which is what you look for. And so he's going to be a massive upgrade in terms of what they had in terms of bench scoring and bench play last season. And for me, Sap, I look at a couple of numbers that were really impressive to me for the Celtics. What did we talk about all last playoffs? What was their biggest Achilles heel? And in the finals, turnovers. Celtics turned the ball over only 10 times last night. That's a really good number. You're really happy to see that number be, below 15 for the Celtics is outstanding as far as they've been playing, and 10 is fantastic. So you take that all day long. And I also was really impressed with the rebounding for the Celtics, considering they had a massive height disadvantage going up against the Sixers, specifically Joel Embiid, and the Celtics actually won the rebounding battle in this, in a big part because their star player, Jayson Tatum, rebounded the hell out of the basketball. 12 rebounds for Tatum last night. That is going to pay huge dividends, especially while Rob Williams is out, Sap. If Tatum's going to put a concerted effort into rebounding the basketball, in addition to scoring, this team is going to be all the much better for it.
He had 12 rebounds last night. There's no reason he can't average 8.5 rebounds per game. He's 6'10", 230 pounds, athletic, long, and he seems to be playing with more aggression. And again, it's only one game. I get it. There was a play early in that game where Tyrese Maxey beat his man off the dribble, and Tatum came from the weak side and swatted the ball into the third row, like aggressively, like get that crap out of here. We don't always see that with Jayson Tatum. We saw that from him last night. I know when Marcus Smart and Joel Embiid got involved in their kerfuffle, it was more Jaylen Brown that went in there first to back his teammate, which I think is a good sign, because now we get the notion that Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart are simpatico, which wasn't always the case with those two guys. Tatum was a little later coming into the scrum. I don't want Jayson Tatum getting into scrums. He's your best player. He doesn't have to be the enforcer. The thing I noticed the most, though, when that happened, how freaking big Joel Embiid is. Because Jayson Tatum is 6'10".
He's massive. Just a massive human.
He dwarfed Jayson Tatum. He's got to be 7'2", 7'3", and we know about his skill level is just off the charts. But yeah, Tatum, he's locked in, and from everything we've heard from the offseason, all he talked about was winning, winning, winning. I think that really hurt him, the way he played in the finals last year and how close the Celtics came up short. Again, if they had had Malcolm Brogdon on that roster last year, I think maybe that's a different finals. And the thing that Malcolm Brogdon brings to the Celtics is his ability to break down a defense off the dribble. There aren't a lot of those guys on the Celtics. Obviously, it's Tatum and Brown. Brogdon's a third guy that can do that, so that's going to expand that offense, open up some lanes for the shooters, and make it easier for Tatum and Brown to go out and score 35 points. Look, they're not going to average 35 points per game, but again, as I said earlier, 21 of 25 inside the arc, 84% on twos. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that gives Celtics fans, I think a lot of excitement. And I tweeted this out and I talked about it a little bit in my post-game show, Sap, last night, is that I think it was important for them to start the season with a win, especially against a good Philadelphia team, and sort of answer some of the questions like, can they get past some of this negativity? Can, these guys, is there going to be a championship hangover? And obviously it's game 1 of 82, but I think they need, if they started the season on a couple game losing streak, I think there would be a lot of questions and a lot of negative feelings. And I think that, to open the season with a win, and to get, for Joe Mazzulla, especially, to get that win game 1, that's got to feel really good for them. And they can kind of take a deep sigh and say, okay, look at the talent we have on this team. We can do this.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jet. And also the dynamic in the city. Again, you were 12 years old when the Patriots won their first Super Bowl, and that kicked off 2 decades of winning, where the city won 12 championships. The Celtics won 1, the Bruins won 1, the Red Sox 4, and of course the Patriots 6. So there's a lot of pressure on those teams to perform. If you look at the 4 major teams in the city, I would think we all agree that the Celtics are the closest to winning a championship. The Bruins
Yeah,
might be a fun, entertaining team this year that scores a lot of goals but gives up just as many. The Patriots are still players away from being a real contender, especially after watching Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes last Sunday. That those two guys and those two teams, Buffalo and Kansas City, appear to be playing a different sport than the
sure.
Patriots are playing. And the Red Sox, Lord the hell knows what
Are a
they're
mess.
up
Yeah.
to at this point. Yeah, I mean, they may bounce back next year and will win the World Series because they have often followed up a last place finish with a World Series championship. But I think of the four major teams, if you're just a Boston sports fan, not specific to one team, you think the Celtics have the best chance to be the next champion in the city of Boston. So there's pressure there. Getting off to that good start is important. And I just think that you saw Jayson Tatum. It seems to me like he's grown up. He's in his sixth year as a player. So he's not a kid anymore. He's still young, right? But he's not a kid. Jaylen Brown's in his seventh year. Marcus Smart's in his ninth year. Brogdon's in his seventh year. This is now a team made up of veteran players. Forget Al Horford, who's, obviously on the back nine. But this is a young team, but they have experience. This is the window to win this thing because who knows? Is Jaylen Brown going to be here in 3 years? We don't know. What else is going to happen? Is Jayson Tatum at some point going to want to move on? If you could be that dynamic this year, contend and win a championship, then that sets up a good long run for the Celtics because those two young guys, they both looked in real good shape coming into it. But again, the first of 82, everyone's healthy, and they looked the part last night.
Yeah, no doubt, Sap. Just to flip the script quickly, talk about before we get into the other game, just talk about what we saw from the Philadelphia 76ers last night. A lot was made about them, making these additions to their depth and to their bench. We saw some of those guys, PJ Tucker, Daniel House, Montrezl Harrell, DeAndre Melton, all those guys played last night. I think that, we know what they have with Joel Embiid. He was okay last night, certainly didn't play his best. I thought, especially considering the Celtics had to go very small because they don't have Rob Williams, as you mentioned. They don't have Luke Cornett right now. And so they had to play 20 minutes of Noah Vonleh, who was fine. But that Joel Embiid should have dominated a little bit more. James Harden was their leading scorer with 35 points. He's still maddening to watch, Sap, because all of his points are basically made up of just drawing up obnoxious fouls. What do you make of this team through just one game, Sap?
For one game, I still am concerned with the coaching situation. Look, I love Doc Rivers. Personally, love Doc Rivers. I, 10, 12 years ago thought that he should run for the U.S. Senate. That's how much I think of him as a person. I thought he was a fabulous coach when he was here. At times with the Clippers, I think the game maybe has passed him by a little bit, and he's lost a little bit of his fastball. Harden is maddening to watch. He looked closer to prime Harden, though, last night. He was really good, but he's got to be tough to play with because he monopolizes the ball so much that it turns into a two-man game with Joel Embiid, and they still don't have great chemistry together. And then the other three players on the court kind of stand around and wait for something to happen. Now, I love Tyrese Maxey. I think he could be a star in this league, a great number 3 player on a contending team. They didn't really set him off until, late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter, and then he kind of kept them in the game. They cut it to
fourth,
8
yeah,
in the fourth quarter, right? And it was all Tyrese Maxey. Where was he in the first 2.5 quarters? I mean, he's not handling the ball. James Harden's handling the ball. So I think you got to integrate him a little bit more. Also, you add PJ Tucker. And again, we both love PJ Tucker. At 37 years old, Jet, he can't cover Jayson Tatum. That's just not a good idea.
Right, Sep. I'm not sure
he's 5'6" inches shorter than Jayson Tatum, right? And Jayson Tatum is a far better athlete, 12 years younger. My biggest question, Jet, not to interrupt, is where the hell was Matisse Thybulle, who's an outstanding defensive player
in the game?
Yeah,
I think he played.
I mean, if you look at the officials' box score, 0 minutes, because you have to play more than 30 seconds to qualify for a minute played. He had less than 30 seconds. He is their best defensive player. Tatum and Brown are having their way against the other defenders of Philadelphia. Where is Matisse Thybulle? Why did he play so few minutes? Was he hurt? If not, are they punishing him because he didn't accept the rookie contract extension? These are things that I think about that sometimes Doc Rivers can't get over as a coach. And I think that's kind of his Achilles heel as a coach.
Yeah, it struck me, Sap, with the Sixers that it felt like they added all these pieces. None of them are massive names, but I thought they were all within themselves pretty solid signings, especially for a team that didn't have all that much cap space. But it seemed to me like they didn't really know how to utilize any of those players. I like Montrezl Harrell, but I didn't see, he played 11 minutes last night. You wouldn't have even noticed, like he didn't really do anything on the court. I'm not sure they know how to use him. DeAndre Melton is a solid player, but 21 minutes for him is too much. Daniel House didn't make any sort of impact. And like you said, PJ Tucker, he's best, like you said, Sap, sort of in spurts and guarding, being physical and then just staying in the corner and shooting threes. I don't even know if I saw him in the corner. Everything that they were running was at the top of the key with James Harden. So
how many minutes did he play? How many minutes did PJ Tucker play?
33.
Yeah, and Matisse Thybulle played less than 30 seconds. Again, was he hurt? If he was hurt, why did he even play the 30 seconds? Why was he dressed? Again, are they punishing him because he did not sign that rookie contract extension? Grant Williams didn't sign a rookie contract extension with the Celtics either, and he was outstanding last night. Like he kind of had to get over these things.
Right?
A great game last night between he and Malcolm Brogdon. They had 31 points. They were outstanding, right? Were they 12 for 16 from the floor? Outstanding. So Matisse Thybulle is an elite defender. You've got to put him on either Brown or Tatum to try to at least take one of those guys out. Tatum and Brown, it felt like a scrimmage for those two guys. Again, for the third time, I will say it. 21 of 25 inside the arc. That's 84% on 2-point shooting. That's unheard of. That's crazy. And they did nothing to try to stop it.
So I definitely think today you feel pretty good about where the Celtics are at. And, you're like, okay, this roster works. And for the Sixers, I think they have a lot of figuring out to do in terms of how they integrate these new pieces. And I'm not sure that the best methodology, Sap, is to run the offense through James Harden. I think run the offense through Embiid. I don't see that they made a concerted effort to do that, especially with the Celtics going so small last night because they had to. Joel Embiid should have 40 points in that type of game. No problem.
That's a night he gets 40-20, right? In his sleep.
Yeah, should be.
Right, because
that's take advantage of that matchup. There's nobody in the Celtics without Rob Williams who can have any sort of real impact on him. I mean, Al Horford in spurts historically has been good against Embiid, but it's not really a fair matchup at this point. And, Embiid, he was fine last night, but I'd say that was a below average game for him. And like you said, Sep, he should have put up 40-20 last night. And to win that type of game, he's going to need to do something like that. And he didn't, and they lost.
There's still no chemistry between Embiid and Harden. Now, Harden came in February, so he only played a couple of months with Embiid, and we know that Harden missed a lot of games with injuries, and Embiid's always hurt, so I don't know how that chemistry is going to be created with those two players. I still think you need more of Tyrese Maxey, who I think is a borderline all-star. I really do, on both ends of the floor, so let's see more of him. I thought Tobias Harris did some nice things out there. You've got to integrate these other players because you're going to just double Joel Embiid. And Harden, look, at this point in his career, he's not going to have those types of games every night. He's going to have other nights where he's, 7 of 23 from the floor, and they're not going to win those games. So I think you got to get those other players involved. But again, it's game one. I think that they'll get their act together at some point. But, I still, to this moment, do not understand why, Matisse Thybulle played fewer than 30 seconds. That's a player that could have had an impact last night. Would have they won if he played 20 minutes? No. Well, the Celtics were better and are better, but at least give yourself a chance by playing your best defensive player against two guys who were unstoppable last night. I will not repeat what they shot on 2-point shooting again. I did it 3 times. That's enough.
Okay.
Then it become like Jimmy 2 times in Goodfellas. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Sap, I was very happy that the Celtics pulled off the win on opening night, and I'm sure you were not thrilled so much with the Lakers' performance as in the nightcap, the late nightcap, I should say. They fell to the Warriors, 123-109. The Warriors win that one, and the Warriors also got their rings last night, and a couple of their players just got paid. Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole signed some big contract extensions as we all wait to see what happens with Draymond Green in the offseason now, as he was chumming it up with LeBron pretty good though during that game, Sap, I saw. So maybe he's headed to the Lakers.
Yeah, perfect. The Lakers need a guy who's past his prime
and can't shoot.
Is going to cost a lot of money, who can't shoot. Yeah, he'd be perfect on the Lakers because they've already got a bunch of those guys. Look, LeBron looked good last night. He may lead the league in scoring. It could be his way of just saying, look, I don't have a chance of winning a championship, but at 38 years old, I'm going to go ahead and lead the league in scoring. He's now fewer than 1,300 points behind Kareem to become the all-time leading scorer in league history. I thought Anthony Davis looked okay. He's got to rebound better, but overall...
Yeah, come on, Sep. 6 rebounds is not okay.
Not good. That's not good. The rest of his game looked okay. He just didn't rebound enough. Westbrook, That's Westbrook, right? He's not the most efficient guy. But other than that, like I said in our preview, Kendrick Nunn, I think, could be a nice player for this team. But that's about it. I mean, Mobley, Walker, they couldn't hit the backboard. They couldn't hit the side of the backboard. I mean, they really struggled. Yeah, Matt Ryan was playing a fair amount of minutes. I thought he was with the Colts, but apparently he's playing with the Lakers too. They're a mess right now. They need to add talent. This isn't a situation where, okay, we're going to get player X, Y, and Z back healthy, or if we give it some time, these guys are going to integrate.
This is the
roster. Not one of those situations. Yeah, like we just talked about Philadelphia. Okay, they'll figure out how to get more out of Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, and they've got some pieces, and Embiid is a guy who's going to dominate more so than Anthony Davis will. So that can work, right? And with the Celtics, it's like, hold on till Rob Williams comes back. And Milwaukee, just stay healthy. You'll contend. With the Lakers, it's like, here's the roster. It just doesn't look like it fits. And how do you add pieces unless you make the trade, right, of Russell Westbrook to Indiana for the two players that they're most interested
in. Yeah.
Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. Yeah.
And at this point, if you're Indiana, you'd say, give us more now.
Right. At this point, yeah. And then it's going to be.
Price just went up.
It's going to be Westbrook and 2 first-round picks for Miles Turner. And I would take Buddy Hield. Why can't I remember his name? Buddy Hield, he sounds like he should be like a big band leader or something. Buddy Hield in the 6-piece string set. Miles Turner, I'll take Miles Teller at this point if that's the case. I think he would help the Lakers more than some of the players we saw out there last night.
Yeah, Sap, I when we did our preview of the Western Conference and we talked extensively about the Lakers, and we're going to talk extensively about the Lakers throughout the season. 1, because they're your squad. 2, because LeBron's the biggest player in the league, and 3, because they're the Lakers. So this is not going to be the first or last time we talk about
Not my squad. LeBron's my guy. There's a difference.
They're your temporary squad.
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm a whore at that point. I just go wherever LeBron goes. Hopefully, exactly. Cleveland. After the trade, before the trade deadline, send LeBron to Cleveland. I'll be happy. He'll win another championship there.
Yeah, maybe. You do have Cleveland in the finals, if everybody remembers correctly. What I was saying, Sap, when we were doing the preview is that I don't like the roster construction. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. We've always said this, Sap. We've been doing shows together for a long time now, like a decade, I think. And every time we've talked about LeBron James, we've said the best teams he could be on are teams where he's surrounded by shooters. It's amazing to me that Rob Pelinka has not gotten that memo. Like, how is it possible that you've surrounded LeBron James with some of the absolute most garbage shooters in the NBA? It doesn't make sense. The roster construction makes no sense. And LeBron himself was basically saying that after the game and say, we're not really a team that has a bunch of good shooters, so we have to do this. Why a guy who has one of, if not the greatest court vision in the history of the game. And I'm not, this huge LeBron apologist or huge fan, but like I can see what's obvious. He still has amazing court vision. That hasn't declined at all. He's one of the greatest players at being able to run full speed and hit somebody on a dime. How are you not surrounding this guy with any good shooting? It doesn't make sense.
One of the LeBron fans, and there are many that I follow, but I also follow a lot of the LeBron haters because it's Twitter. It's supposed to be fun. I don't take it seriously. But they tweeted out a picture where LeBron was being manned up by Steph Curry, which shouldn't really be a major challenge. He should be able to, blow by Curry, do whatever he wants against them. But the other 4 Golden State defenders were all within 1 step of the paint, as if to say, we don't think you have a shooter on the court on your side. So if you beat Steph off the dribble, which you easily can, we're going to have 4 other guys ready for you. It's almost as if, again, Aaron Rodgers is my football equivalent of LeBron. He has no receivers to throw to. To me, if you're going to pay someone that type of money, which Green Bay is paying Aaron Rodgers and what the Lakers are paying LeBron James, and these are all-time great players who I think both can still play. Maybe they're not in their prime, but they're both still really good. Why don't you help them and surround them with players that can get the most out of them, and then they can get the most out of those players? Makes absolutely no sense. I mean, and this is a league, Jet, that's loaded with shooters. It's not like, 1996 where there were maybe 12 guys that you didn't want to see taking 3-point shots against you. There's a lot of shooters in the league. Go get some.
Yeah, the roster construction is terrible, and Rob Pelinka just got a contract extension for God knows what reason. but it's there. The Lakers have got to be one of the easiest teams to defensively game plan for, Sap. Just pack it in. Just defend the paint, defend inside 3-point line. Don't worry. If Russell Westbrook and Patrick Beverly and Lonnie Walker are out there, go for it. Take a three. Believe me, that's what teams want them to do. That's a possession ender right there. Let them shoot threes. And LeBron wasn't particularly good from three last night either. 3 of 10 from three. Listen, he's going to score. He's going to rebound. He's going to get his assists and stuff like that. But he can't be the one-man band anymore at this point in his career. No. It's not something that is reasonable to ask. It's not something that's going to lead to success. And the way this roster is constituted, Sep, they're not going to be able to compete unless they make some major changes, and that is adding shooting.
Yeah, and that's where Buddy Hield would come in. Miles Turner, not so much, but he's a good defensive player.
He's a solid 3-point shooter for a big. You could do a lot worse.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, Buddy Hield is a really good 3-point shooter. So, you put him on the floor with LeBron and Anthony Davis. You spread things out. Now you've got something. I do like Kendrick Nunn. I feel Kendrick Nunn can be a real contributor on this team. So if you can add a couple of pieces, now you can elevate yourself, and that opens up things for LeBron and Anthony Davis. But right now, no. Poor roster construction. Meanwhile, they're playing a team last night that's having their ring ceremony, which I think just ended 4 minutes ago. It seemed like it was going on forever. Way to
nice
rub
rings.
it in Golden State. Oh, yeah. I mean, well, look at the money they spend on salaries. They can certainly afford nice rings. But that's a team that's well constructed and is going to be difficult to deal with this year, as usual.
Yeah, I tweeted this out too. I think you can make a very, very strong case that both teams that were in the finals last year, Boston and Golden State, are both better this year. Mm-hmm. Boston, because of the addition of Malcolm Brogdon and the continued emergence of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Golden State, because look at their freaking depth. I mean, these young guys are really impressive. Kuminga, Wiseman, I thought looked really good last night. Poole, Moody, all those guys are coming off the bench. Oh, they added Dante DiVincenzo, a really nice shooter off the bench too. Like, this team is freaking loaded. They are. And that's great for the team that has their core three of Draymond, Curry, and Thompson are old, and so that they don't have to play huge minutes in games because they have these guys who are going to be really effective players coming off their bench. I mean, they might be the deepest team in the league. So they're going to be a problem. We knew they were going to be a problem, but I think that you're seeing that these younger players are going to be figuring it out and asked to do more than they were last year. And that's going to give the Warriors even more of a chance to repeat as champions. So yeah, I think, we're looking at two teams that are in way different stages of competing for a title, the Lakers and the Warriors. And so I think, yes, you come away impressed with the Warriors, but I'm not surprised. I have them, winning the West, does do a lot of people. And I think there's there's good vibes with Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, who just got paid, massive amounts of money to stay there. And the ownership seems committed to keeping this team intact, as much as they can.
Yeah, I mean, you got Jordan Poole signed a 4-year, $140 million extension. Andrew Wiggins, 4 years, $109 million extension. Both of those guys are now signed through 2026, 2027. Next year, not this year, they're going to be committed to $52 million for Steph Curry, $43 million for Klay Thompson, $31 million for Jordan Poole, $28 million for Draymond Green, and $27 million for Andrew Wiggins. Those 5 players alone will eat up $181 million of their payroll. The salary cap for next year, 2023-24, is $134 million. They are obviously using a Swiss bank account or something because they're able to pay all their players. They, of course, are going to pay a huge luxury tax going forward. But we also know that the new TV deal will go into effect in 3 years. So more money will come into the league and those salaries are going to look normal. As we talk about salaries, Jet, look at Grant Williams. The Celtics offered him 4 years, $60 million. That's what the reports are. He turned it down. Grant Williams is what, the 7th best player on the Celtics? Offered $15 million a year for 4 years, turned it down. And you know what? He'll probably get $20 million a year, whether it's from the Celtics or as a restricted free agent at the end of the year. So the money is absolutely crazy. I think the biggest thing we have to look at, though, with Golden State, with these contracts that were handed out to Jordan Poole, who got sucker punched by Draymond Green, and then Andrew Wiggins, who was the 2nd best player on the Warriors in the finals. What does this mean for Draymond Green? He signed for 2 more years. Is he gone after this? And they just figure they've got a reasonable replacement in Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I think that we saw in the finals, Draymond was, not great. And he's definitely, the heart of that team in terms of his personality and the enforcer, but that he's not as talented as he used to be. And so I think that it's possible that he's not long for Golden State, but they have a ton of guys who can do things, and not just Kuminga, Seth, but I think Wiseman, has shown that he's obviously a very adept shot blocker, rebounder, and they have, if they can't get all of Draymond Green out of one player, they have 3 or 4 players that can fill the void, and so they're in obviously really, really good shape. They have drafted well for the last decade. And that's paying off, and the Warriors should be continue to be a force until Steph decides to hang it up. So we'll have to see what happens there, Sap. But yeah, the Draymond thing will be interesting. It seems to be the only thing that could potentially derail the Warriors, is if he just becomes a huge pain in the ass. And one thing I wanted to talk about, Sap, really quickly before we just wrap up the show, talk about some TV rights deals before we get out of here, is that I thought also, talking about this game, the Russell Westbrook comments about how he got hurt. He thinks he hurt himself because he had to come off the bench and he tweaked his hand. Like, it's already off to a horrible start, right, with him in LA. So they need to make this trade. They need to make it yesterday. I don't know how much longer the team can last with Westbrook on the team. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to come off the bench. He's best suited to come off the bench now. The team doesn't make sense roster construction-wise, as we said over and over again. It's just, that was not a positive development that he's now complaining about coming off the bench in a preseason game.
No, he probably wants out of there, although he always dreamt about playing for the Lakers because he's from LA, but it was such a bad experience last year that he'd like to move on. They want to move on from him. The strange thing is, Jet, he's still their third best player. And that's what makes it so kind of annoying, is that you want to get rid of him. You may have to give him away, but he's still your third best player. I mean, you look at Draymond Green, and I know he plays a huge role with Golden State, but you can make a case now that it's Steph and Clay and Andrew Wiggins, and now Poole is becoming a bigger player. And we see Wiseman has unlimited talent, and those other young guys are going to be good from year to year to year. Westbrook's still their third best player. Like last year, didn't they have an opportunity to move him straight up for John Wall, which I think would have made more sense? At least John Wall, I don't think he's ever been as good a player as Westbrook, but I think he's been a little bit easier to coach than Westbrook. They would have been better off with that.
Westbrook and a pick is what the Rockets
Westbrook and a pick for John Wall, and now we hear reports that John Wall looks really good with the Clippers. So they would have been better off. I never liked the move for Westbrook last year. He just doesn't fit. He's the least self-aware athlete I've ever seen, and it only gets worse as you get older. When you see the end is near, I don't know what they're going to do with him other than give him away with draft picks and try to get something back for him.
Yeah. He's a net negative asset, Sap, as we've said for like a year now. All right. Last topic before we get out of here, Sap. The NBA, as we've talked about, their TV rights deal is going to come up relatively soon, and there's a lot of people that are interested in bidding for it. According to an article I read on Market Watch, the league will likely be seeking 50 to 75 billion with a B for its next multi-year packages. Amazon, Sap, looks like a potential bidder for the NBA. Do you think, one, that's a good idea, and two, do you see that being the final destination for NBA games?
It's inevitable that they're going to get into play because they have such deep pockets. I mean, Jeff Bezos could buy every team in the NBA and have plenty of money left over to start buying NFL teams. So they're going to probably be part of this. They'll overbid it, but I hope that Turner still remains part of it. Hopefully ESPN and Disney remains part of it. So now you'll have a third network involved. My issue with this is that, yes, Amazon is going to trend with younger audiences, right? I mean, we see that the numbers have been really good in the NFL. They're averaging 13 million people per Thursday night game, and those games have been god-awful to the point that Al Michaels, who makes $1 million broadcasting each of those games, is essentially shitting on the games, and rightfully so. He's at the point in his career, he's 78 years old. I don't think he has a filter, which God bless him. That's why he's so great. But my only concern with that is poorer people, how are they going to consume the NBA product? Like, not everyone can afford cable TV. So you've got poorer audiences that don't have the money to stream games on Amazon, and they can't even really see games on TNT or ESPN because they don't subscribe to cable. They can see them over the air on ABC when they get the finals, and that's about it. So now you're turning off a somewhat important market that maybe isn't that wealthy, but you want to keep those folks involved in following the sport. So I think it would be a massive turnoff. I just hate Amazon. So like I'm dead against them getting involved with this. I've never purchased anything from Amazon. I think it's so dangerous that guy is essentially going to rule the world at some point. It isn't already. I mean, I'm almost 60 years old. I think, he's about my age, but at some point that guy is going to rule the world. Like everything you need to do is going to go through Amazon. And to me, that is sickening. That's not good. It's anti-competition. It's anti-business. If he buys the whole package, that's a turnoff. But look, he has that type of money that he could write a $75 billion check and say, I've got the rights deals for the next 10 years. And the NBA may just have to swallow their pride and take it. But let's hope that Turner Sports and Disney, ESPN remain involved, because I think they do a really good job of covering the sport.
Yeah, I think there's also something to having that long-standing partnership with Disney and ESPN, SAP, and ABC that the NBA has had, and with Turner Sports. They've been broadcasting their games with them for a long time. So, even if Amazon offers more money, maybe the NBA still feels comfortable with how the game is going to be produced through them, and they still stick with them. We also know that, their relationship with Disney was a big reason why they were able to pull off the bubble, on Disney's campus. And so, it's a very strong relationship, and we know what the relationship is with, Turner, and that they have, Barkley and Kenny Smith and Shaq are all ex-NBA guys, and that, they're obviously eventually going to hire Draymond Green at some point. And so, it's a really, I don't know how much the NBA wants to rock the boat. Obviously, it's a business, and if Amazon just comes over the top, which they can, and offers an insane amount of money, you have a responsibility to your company to take that. But I think for right now, the NBA is very comfortable with the way their trajectory is going in terms of growth, and they're comfortable with the partners they have. But we have to see what, we've got a couple of years until these rights deals come out and how the media landscape changes. And I think the NBA is watching closely all those numbers with the NFL on Amazon. And that might be the determining factors, how that continues to do.
And there's so much inventory because you've got an 82-game schedule with 30 teams, possible expansion over the next few years. There's much more inventory with NBA than NFL, just by the sheer number of the schedule. So I think they can get their way in there. The only thing is, what would the average score be on an Amazon Prime game? 52-49? Because it's like in the NFL, it's the first team to 12 wins. That's how those games have been the last few weeks. So they're going to get in there.
Put Al Michaels on the NBA games too.
He did them before. You could invent a new sport, and Al Michaels would be the best play-by-play guy at it.
I've ever heard Al Michaels do an NBA game.
Oh, yeah.
When did he do the NBA?
Early 2000s. I think he and Doc Rivers were a pair. Yeah, I got
to go back and listen then.
You could hand Al Michaels a new sport that just got invented, and he would be the best play-by-play guy. When he did Olympic hockey coverage in 1980, he had never done a hockey game before, and he was splendid at it. And hockey is the most difficult sport to do. He was perfect right from the start. He's the greatest play-by-play man ever. I don't even think there's a discussion on that.
I saw LeBron invested in Major League Pickleball, so maybe he gets Al Michaels to call the pickleball games. We'll see. We'll see what goes on there. But so that's interesting stuff to keep in mind about the NBA, and as their rights deals come closer to expiring, we will obviously keep everybody informed about that. But that's going to do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. Thanks to Full Press Coverage. Check out our social medias at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer. The YouTube version of the show is youtube.com/Jet Stryer. And you can also find the podcast wherever podcasts are found. So just type in the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, and you will find us. And we'll be back later talking about some over and unders in terms of this season and wins predictions and whatever other NBA news this week brings us now that the season is back. We're very happy basketball is back, and we will talk to you later. See you, everybody.